Okay. This means you hand over the word to me, Johannes?
Yes, Sonja.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad that we meet today for the third open IYFEP webinar. And as I already explained last time, we had a wonderful closed webinar last week. We don't have the chance to see each other, but we make the best out of it. And now we have these open webinars and even more participants than we would have if we would meet here in Germany. I'm very confident and looking optimistic into the future. So this will not exclude our meetings here in Germany, but for the time being, and to keep on track and have this interesting webinars pointing out the topics which are interesting for you and which will hopefully also today be interesting for you. We will start with a short introduction, just that you know. Again, it will be Johannes and Samuel who will be our technicians. They will take care of your questions because we will have 2 speakers today, and afterwards you can ask, or meanwhile you can ask your questions, and these will be answered after these 2 speeches. So already thank you at this point for the support. As I said, these webinars are an alternative. I would say it's really a new opportunity, and I'm very glad to have the chance to introduce you to Dr. Philipp Zimmermann. Hello, welcome. He's a veterinary. He studied in Leipzig and a specialist on wild animals and animals living in zoos. So he also was already in Africa, I learned, for several certain time, and it was in South Africa. Please correct me. That's also true. During his work as a veterinary, he found that there are even more animals than zoo and wild animals. I think you know these animals probably on the skin of wild animals, and you found the insects. When I tried to explain to my kids what I will do today, we were watching, or we had a look at your very interesting website, and this is called the Enthusiast. And to explain this pun, this play on words, which I really like, I was quite surprised that my kids, they did not get it. Like, what is so fascinating? Or the other way around, for them it's clear, like insects are super fascinating and are super interesting, and they would watch every insect closely. So, but this is not the case for everybody, and this is, as I understood, what you're working on. Yes, ooh, that's good. 10 points for me already in this first 10 minutes. I'm very curious and will listen to your speech. This will be the first part, or the first speech. And the second speech will be, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, you're working now as an editor. So that's also correct. I'm also curious about this because it seems this is quite far from the animals themselves, but you will let us know. And then I would like to move over to the introduction to Emmanuel Odor. I'm very glad that we made it. We had some technical problems, but I'm very glad to have you, the board chairman of the Earthworm Corporation, with us. Also tiny miracles, let's say, because they are so small and they can move so much. This is also not for my kids, also for me again and again, so fascinating. And what I learned from you was very interesting, because you said that your topic has something to do with spa, like with a kind of a wellness treatment. I learned vermiculture is a soothing, satisfying, and stress-relieving hobby. I'm really curious, because if this is the case, I will definitely also put my box in my garden and sit there and have a nice wellness treatment while improving soil fertility. I'm really, really glad to have you here today. You are, in addition, a biogas expert, doing also research on earthworms, and an active member of UNIFA. We have a very famous song. Don't be scared, I will not to sing in German. And we have this little fingers playing the worms. So if I do this, this is a sign for you to start your speech, but I will also mention it. So thank you for being here. And without Johannes saying, stop, something is not working or anything, no, everything is working well, I would just hand over the word to Dr. Philip.
Oh, perfect. All right, so that is me, Dr. Philip. Thank you very much, Sonia, for the kind introduction. And it seems like you did quite some research on my history there. That is, and it was all correct. Yeah, very good, well informed. I'm going to start sharing my screen now and tell you a little bit more about the relationships, why I do this and that. So, okay, let's see how that works here. Right. So does everybody see my presentation? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, right. Yeah. Okay. Once again, thank you very much for introducing me. As you learned, my name is Dr. Philip. Background is actually really veterinary medicine. And during my active time as a veterinarian, I absolutely was concentrating on zoo and wildlife animals as well as exotics in the private practice. And here it was actually, as Sonia already mentioned, my first contact with insects, not really walking on the skin of larger animals as maybe for elephants or rhinoceros might be the case, but working with exotics in terms of reptiles. And in this consideration, you would have insects as part of the feed source of certain species of reptiles. And it was there where I got to know more about reptiles than I knew in the beginning, in terms of the ingredients they show and how they are an optional feeding source to animals. So that was my first contact with insects, and it also was my first contact on the reaction of people to insects when they are in their natural surrounding, and that was quite interesting, I can tell you. I'm going to tell you a bit about that as well. And then further down the line, I did an internship with the United Nations, and there, during my time there, I learned a lot about the state that our globe is in today and where we're going. So that absolutely left some deep impression with me as well, and that is part of the history why I'm doing this today. Well, today, correct, I'm working as a science editor and a medical writer. And started this little business called Enthusiast, which Sonia pointed out correct, means that I'm enthusiastic about entomology, the science of insects. And the reason why I do this and what it came up from is that I learned at quite a number of events and congresses about the topics of insects as food and feed, and further application for the future is that there is a big need for people and campaigns to raise awareness towards the state that we're in globally, and about the topic of insects as being a possible part as a solution to some of the issues that we're going to face. So that is how that all came together. And that is where it leads me. So Enthusiast, sorry to say, jump back. So Enthusiast wants to raise awareness about the topic. We want to break down reservations towards insects and build up trust toward insects, and tell people and show people, present possible ways in where insects may play a role in the future. So at the beginning, of my presentation, sorry, I jumped there. I have to give you a little insight to where we are right now and why this is a topic that we're talking about. As you all know probably by now, is that there's estimates about the population growth until 2050 to up to 9.5 billion people on the globe. And comparison to that is that we're about at 7.8 billion people right now. And so that is quite an increase of population. And that goes with more and more people on the planet, more and more people relying on food. This goes hand in hand with more and more regions being turned into agricultural land and the destruction of natural habitat. And we need to stop this development, or at least to slow this down. And as for that, we need alternative models of sustainable agriculture. And to give you some examples of that, one of the main things that we have to think about is the traditional ways of animal husbandry that we are concentrating right now, as our livestock produces big volumes of greenhouse gases and consumes a lot of land and a lot of food to be raised, and that we cannot continue on with this. Another point that we have to look at is our daily use of resources that are originating and imported from other countries. A great example here, is the soy protein, which we use to feed our livestock on a large scale. And that is, as you probably all know, soy is grown in big parts in South America. And in terms of that, big parts of the rainforest are cut down in order to get agricultural ground, in order to grow soy. These types of models we cannot keep up. Another example is talking about a protein source, again, is protein derived from fish meal, with our oceans and our fish stocks globally declining, and fish that actually could be used as human food still goes into big parts of livestock aquaculture, etc. And these are things that we definitely need to address in the future. So this brings us to the question why we see insects as an alternative to our livestock that we're traditionally farming. And I give you a short, precise comparison why we do that. If we talk about livestock, especially cattle, but also the other livestock that is farmed under industrial situation in European countries, etc., they produce masses of methane, carbon dioxide, which we know that to have a negative impact on our atmosphere. So in direct comparison to that, insects produce only a fragment of these kind of greenhouse gases when being farmed, and they also consume way less valuable resources such as water and substrate in order to generate biomass in a comparable amount. Another advantage of farming insects is that we can farm them vertically, and so in direct comparison they need way less space to be farmed like other livestock, as an example as cattle. So these are absolutely good points of farming insects instead of traditional livestock. So why should we introduce insects into our food chain? Excuse me, that is a question that only people from our Western cultures are able to ask, as insects are already a food source in great parts of the world for a long, long time. There's more than 2,000 species of insect known to be edible, and they're part of a traditional diet in great parts of Asia, Latin America, and Africa. So these people already have a good idea for a long time about the positive aspects of insects in terms of being rich and valuable source of protein and fat, and to be an easy to handle animal group. Due to the climate conditions in this part of the world, insects may be either collected from the wild or farmed under uncomplicated conditions. So the question why we see insects as an alternative, a nutritional alternative to our livestock, to give you an idea here is that we know from research that the ingredients and the content of ingredients in insects, and we're talking about protein, fat, minerals, vitamins, that these are comparable to the ingredients that we get from beef, pork, and meat from poultry. So if we look at the structure of protein, if we look at the essential amino acids, non-essential amino acids, the content of unsaturated fatty acids such as omega-3 and 6, the content of minerals and vitamins, that is quite similar in their pattern from what we see in meat from our traditional livestock. So that is why we actually see here is an actual nutritional alternative to our former meat producing animals. So if we're talking about insects as feed, this is definitely something that we always have to consider before we farm insects or to introduce them into our food and feed chain is always the specific regional legislative estimations and restrictions. And I can only speak for Europe. At this point, insect protein as an alternative source is only to be allowed to be introduced into aquaculture, and that is since 2017. But it's also expected that insect protein as an alternative protein source will be allowed to be introduced into the pigs and poultry farms very soon. Actually, there's rumors going that this was about to be happening at the end of this year. And the beginning of the next year as well, but due to Corona, this is there is a delay in this as well. With this development, with insect protein being introduced into pig and poultry farming, this will have a mega boost on the development of protein producing companies. And it will lead to the establishment of further businesses in this sector as due to the potential that is in this market. And so, yeah, that is for insect protein. Talking about insect fat, the use of insect fat is already allowed in aquacultures today and also in the farming of pigs and poultry. Another animal group that we have to look at are our companion animals. With a background that companion animals in terms of dogs and cats in Europe, at least, I don't know how it is in Uganda, but here they consume massive amounts of meat-based products for what in turn, again, a lot of animals need to be farmed, and that definitely needs to change. We definitely need an alternative for that, and that looks promising. And it is already companies directing this issue to exchange meat-based products. From my veterinarian time, I can tell you that especially dogs pretty much eat everything that you throw into their bowl. And so here, alternative products on the base of insect protein are absolutely welcome, I'd say. I have to point out, if we're talking about insects and the insects in our food chain, we always try to generate and say, okay, it's insects in general, and that is not correct when we're talking about the content and quality of ingredients. It would be the same if you would compare a cow to a chicken and say that the meat has the similarities at all points. That is not correct in the term of insects. that we know that there are definite interspecies differences in the content and the quality of ingredients in between species, and not only in between species, but also in between the life stages of a insect species itself. So if you are talking about an early pupal stage, there's other ingredient contents in there than in a larvae stage before it turns into an adult. So that has to be kept in mind. The insect species that we're talking about, if we're talking about farmed insects in the EU at this point, pretty much concentrate on the black soldier fly, the buffalo worms, yellow mealworms, and crickets. These are the main pillars of insect farming in the EU at this point. So if we're talking about insects as a potential food source, again, I have to point out, and as always, it is attention to be paid to the regional legislation. In Europe, it is the novel food regulation that defines which parts, which ingredients of insects are allowed to be introduced into what kind of food under what kind of conditions. And with respect to that novel food regulation, by now, insect protein is already introduced into products such as bread, pasta, tortilla chips, protein bars. Some examples you see here down here. Other companies concentrate on the whole body of an insect. Most of the times we're talking about buffalo worms, yellow mealworm, and crickets to be used as snack insects. You would see some examples of that down here. Other companies have the feeling, and I think they're quite right about it, that insect-based products may substitute meat-based products, that we are sure about that this has to be meat, but I think that is going to change in products such as burgers and sausages as well. So here is a wide variety of possible products, and I think it's not my impression, I think it's the general impression that these also will get more and more over the time. So that is about parts of insects as part of our food and feed chain. But besides protein and fat, a big compound of insects is chitin. Everybody probably has the idea of an exoskeleton of insects, and that is quite crunchy. That is because of chitin. There's also a quite big amount of research performed on chitin and chitosan, which is a derivative from chitin, due to its bioactive and biostimulating properties. With that in mind, there's many studies running on using chitin on the basis of pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and biofuels, etc. This also seems to be a very promising sector that is developing there in the near future. And another product that definitely will be on the rise in the near future, and I do not need a crystal ball for that, as it comes with the mass farming of insects, it is insect frass, and these are the leftovers of insects. The more insects you farm, the more leftovers of these you will definitely have. And these leftovers not only contain the feces, but also the castings of the insects that they shed during their life cycle. And so this is a really high, rich in nutrients and organic matter, the insect frass, and it is seen as an alternative to plant fertilizer due to the bioactive component of chitin, which is able to increase the activity of microorganisms in the soil. So here we absolutely see an alternative for artificial plant fertilizer, which makes insect frass another really promising application for the future. That was pretty much what we are when we're talking about ingredients of insects as an alternative to ingredients that we use today. And last but not least, I would like to show you another great application of insects. And I would like to concentrate on the black soldier fly in this part of the concentration. As being a central element of models of circular economy. An idea or models that definitely will have a impact in the future or need to be used in the future. And the background here is that the larvae of the black soldier fly are quite undemanding on the substrate, in terms of the substrate that they're raised upon. Larvae of black soldier fly are able to pretty much turn everything of organic origin into protein of a stable structure. And that is of importance in this term, as we are considering, or it is considered, to use the black soldier fly to reduce organic waste, organic side streams from agriculture, from the food industry, and let them turn it into a regrowing, valuable resource. So for countries with big amounts of organic wastes, this is a real great option to get somewhat rid of them and turn them into a really valuable food and feed source, as we learned earlier. Also, you see there's manure written here. There's studies on that black soldier fly are able to metabolize even pathogens such as gut bacteria in the terms of E. coli, for example, that might some people know, and that you will find no traces of these pathogens in the products derived from the insects in a later step. So that is really a nice and very important fact for the future of circular economy models. What I have to point out again here is the regional legislation. As in Europe for 2020, I'm talking, you're not allowed to add former foodstuff in terms of meat and fish, as well as catering waste or leftovers from slaughterhouses into these circular models, into the substrate of the black soldier fly, due to the development in the 80s that we had with BSE and protein being introduced into the food of cattle. But this is discussed, and that is promising that we might have changes here. But at this point, I need to point this out. This is our regional state that we're a legislative state that we're in. Maybe for people from Africa, another or an example, if you look down here, you see the lady on the left side. I met her last year at the summer school of insects as food and feed in the University of Wageningen in the Netherlands last year. And she started a business called InsectiPro. That's why I put it up here. And she's concentrating on exactly this kind of circular model. And it seems to be a very promising and successful business already. So if you're interested in that kind of idea, look at InsectiPro. And also there is a project that's called the Flying Food Project. There's a project that is, as far as I know, based in the Netherlands, but they also run projects in Africa, and I've seen that they also run projects in Uganda. So that is something that you might be interested in, the Flying Food Project. You probably find it under flyingfoodproject.com. So that is something that you might want to look at. Okay, so a little quick, but I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention today. I sure hope that I was able to give you a short introduction to the potential of insects for future applications, and why we should introduce insects a lot more into our food chain. I sure have the idea that, and it's not my idea myself, that insects are not the only option as an alternative protein in the future, but it seems to be one of the fastest options to change our supply chains and the use of valuable resources in the future. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip. Mr. Dr. Philip, I'm completely overwhelmed with all this information. And I think I will definitely, do you have a fan club, an enthusiast fan club? I will definitely.
We call ourselves being enthusiastic. And yes, if you want to start this, then please go ahead.
From now on, I'm definitely one of yours enthusiasts, because really, thank you so much. This was so much information. I even don't know where to start to digest these ento products in this theoretical, on this theoretical level. And I also see a lot of topics which could be interesting for our webinars. For myself, I'm more in the field of personal development. I'm thinking about a webinar on how to become humble and modest as a black soldier fly larvae. What do you think about this?
That sounds perfect. Let's work on that.
Thank you so much. You gave us a huge insight and even mentioned business opportunities and a lot of links which can be used for further studies. Please, dear participants, don't hesitate to ask any questions now to Dr. Philip, but also to Emmanuel later on in the chat. So they will be collected, they will be digested, and we will work on them after our next presentation. Thank you again, Dr. Philip. We'll now continue with Emmanuel. I make the sign and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sanja Dimta, for the great opportunity given to me. The audience, I'm Emmanuel Udur, the chairman for Annual Earthworm Farmers Cooperative Society Limited. We are located in northern Uganda. We experience a climate of around 27 degrees Celsius, a little bit hot. I am happy and I am as pleased as a farmer with a bumper crop harvest to be in this good discussion for the future of farming. I will start by giving a brief highlight on how we have used insect and our cooperative arrangement in Uganda to advance several products that along the value chain has enabled us to create spin-off and agribusiness along the value chain. About one of the insects that we have tapped as young resilient farmers, aware that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, 821 million people are going hungry worldwide. That's according to World Food Organization. And yet we live in a scientific age where science has managed to conquer several things that have been hindrance worldwide to the farmers and the community at large. About earthworm falls under phylum Annelida, and yet true insects fall under phylum Arthropoda. So earthworm, they are found in almost streams, swamps, and forested area. I think worldwide. In Uganda, we have been taking advantage of our local farms that has a lot of redworms. Our particular interest is on redworms because of one reason. It is available in plenty in our swamps and very easy to extract. That was at the beginning when we started in 2019 as a cooperative. Although several researches have been advanced, mostly a little bit in Makerere University, that has been done a little bit at Kabanyolo Agricultural Research Institute. So when it comes to earthworm, it is an insect that is very humble. We call it a farmer's body because unlike other employees we employ at the farm, they work for you 24/7. Your workers can go for holiday, go and rest, but your earthworms are working for you wonders every day. So in particular, to this discussion, I will zero myself to two key thematic areas. One, using earthworm as a grow bio-waste converter. Earthworm, what we have done as a cooperative is that we harvest them either from the swamp or from the conventional pit compost system. We always dig a big pit at our homes, and every day we get the cow dung, goat's dung, and we rear rabbit. We collect all this dung together in a conventional pit. Then we mix it with leaves from compounds. Mostly every morning when we sweep the compound, we collect all the leaves and we dump it in a central pit. And we leave this biodegradable material to compost for around a month. When the methane has been converted from it, mostly in a month's time, it will have less methane concentration. Then we can now put our earthworms. We gather some earthworms, mostly around 2,000 to 3,000. We put in those compost pits. One, it will help us to multiply in plenty, but that one to keep our stock. But we also have a standard vermicomposting unit. We usually prefer wooden boxes because it's a very good insulator. Earthworm always requires an atmosphere with moisture content, mostly around 40 to 50% moisture content within the earthworm unit. So within this unit, we will use the biodegradable products, mostly either this old cow dung, compost cow dung, and ammonia excreta, other local market. Rescue like rotten tomatoes to almost the time when they are taken. We gather from the local market cabbage, but with cabbage we are a little bit careful. Most cabbages are sprayed. So for the vermicomposting system, it requires biodegradable substance that does not have chemicals. Otherwise, the whole process will die because in the biological process of decomposing this organic waste, they require certain environment that are chemical free. So we use this waste, the avocado that are very many in our local markets, mostly within the urban area. We are doing vermiculture to fit within urban farming because this is where you can collect this waste in plenty. In a very nearby market, you will collect almost 2 or 3 tons of market waste that can be used as a part of the waste decomposing substance. So when we collect them and we integrate them into the earthworm system, we feed them into the earthworm system, the earthworms are able to decompose this bio waste, mostly the red worms, or the scientific name is red wiggler, or Senia fotida. They will be able to decompose this bio waste within a short period of 1 to 1.5 months. All this waste will be decomposed. But in the process, to ensure this waste, because to the vermiculture community, there's nothing like waste. We all as decompose these biodegradable products, we are able to get what we call vermicompost. So as we are doing the earthworm, we are so much careful about the type of ingredients that we are going to put into the system. Mostly we balance between the greens, mostly those are, we balance between the greens and the animal excreta, so as to create that grit. Then secondly, to enable this earthworm to multiply quickly, we also use egg cells that are usually dropped in local markets from people who are making chapati, from people who deals in eggs, mostly farmers who deal supply eggs for hotels. So we collect these egg cells and pound them into powder. That will help these earthworms to multiply quickly. Reproduction in earthworm happens quickly as they live among calcium. So since egg cells contain calcium, it enables our earthworm system to run smoothly. But also keeping in mind that we are helping to remove this waste that would otherwise disturb the urban authority. Because what I know, under local government act, there's always a solid waste management issues that have been causing concern worldwide among the local government, how you can recycle waste and get product recovery. So, earthworm, we target around 3 products from our vermiculture. We target vermicompost, which is a very rich organic compost. It contains both micro and macronutrients. And we are also looking at vermicompost tea. That is a liquid pesticide that comes out of the earthworm system. As we water the earthworm compost unit, we are able to wash the body of earthworm that has some mucus called jelly, combined with the elements in cow dung and this animal excreta. It produces what we call vermicompost tea, which is an insect repellent. So this is one of the products we extract out of earthworm system. Then secondly, we also harvest this earthworm mostly after a period of 2 months. We harvest it after it has decomposed all these organic biodegradable products. It will form what we call vermicast. So this vermicast, we use sieve in order to separate the earthworm and the vermicompost that we need now for our garden. So as we extract the earthworm, we then separate them. We dry it on direct sunshine, or in a modern way, you can use a solar dryer. As we dry these worms, we'll be able to get what we call worm meal. After they are dried, we smash them into powder, because earthworm contain elements of protein, manganese, zinc, and these are all the nutrients that animals need, mostly poultry, piggery, and fish. Because initially in Africa here, mostly Uganda, poultry feeds, the main protein source is what we call it, there's a silverfish. That's what most companies that make poultry feeds use. So we are saying, why should we human beings compete with animals for protein? Since in Uganda people eat silverfish, we say let people eat silverfish and use some. Since initially our tradition, we don't eat earthworm. We use our earthworm for feeding, for formulating poultry feeds, with our main interest in solving the protein nutritional insecurity. So this is the partial solution we are trying to solve. After getting this worm meal, we now then go into value addition and introduce those aspects of maize bran that is extracted from maize, soya cake, sunflower cake, cotton cake, that we get it from a nearby ginnery. Since northern Uganda is known for producing large amount of cotton, that was in fact our main cash crop when the British colonized Uganda. We used to produce the best cotton mill, and mind you, our audience, my father, late father, was the ginnery manager for Around Cooperative Union that used to produce the largest cotton mint in Uganda, and I think East Africa as a large. So I grew up among farmers. So this cotton cake helped us to create poultry feeds. Then we also mix with other ingredients like calcium, which we can formulate it locally from dry bones from hotels. We collect them, smash them into powder,
Emmanuel?
and it becomes a source of calcium for the. Yes, please.
Yes, I'm
I
sorry to
can
interrupt
hear
you.
you.
I think just that there are so many questions waiting, and I would like you like slowly to wrap up your speech that we will have enough time for the questions. So please focus on the most important things you would like to add to your topic. Your microphone, please. Please switch on your microphone.
It's on the left bottom of your screen. Just click yes.
Okay.
No, and now you turned it off again. Click, okay. Click one more time on the button left, bottom left. Yes, now your microphone is on.
Okay, I've done it.
Okay, we can hear you. Okay.
I can continue. Okay. Yes. So, as I've said, our main package in solving the global food crisis is to guarantee cheaper sources of protein for animal feeds. This is our main part as a cooperative, and our motto as a cooperative, our mission is ending poverty one village at a time through vermiculture agribusiness model. So now I'm coming to a part now where we integrate vermiculture into farming. One, I've already I made mention that we use the vermicompost for potting tomatoes. So far within our cooperative, we have around 12,000 stems of tomatoes that are potted in waste cement bags.
Emmanuel,
This is a kind of urban farming.
Sorry for interrupting again.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes. Okay. So
1 minute left.
we are putting it within bags. Yeah, we are putting it within this bag for this reason that among local farmers within the urban areas, they have few acres of land to farm on. But we are saying that even without the land, we can do farming. Like most of our tomatoes are done on the compound using this waste paper, but we integrate vermicompost from earthworm casting to grow these tomatoes. As I conclude, another great important with vermiculture, which is raising earthworm for resale, we formulate these poultry feeds and sell it to our farmers cheaply. When you compare the price of our poultry feeds from Uganda here, ours a little bit low because worm meal are cheaper than silverfish. So it makes our poultry feeds cheaper than other companies that are using silverfish as their protein source. So this is basically what earthworm is about, and it is inclusive. Yeah, all the youth can be incorporated to do vermiculture. Elderly, women, as we have around close to 60 women within our cooperative arrangement. So this is our solution, and to the audience, I think this is where the insects play a big role when it comes to food system and increasing productivity as a whole. Thank you very much. Others I will answer through questions.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Like again, another animal, a very diverse one. Thank you so much for this lots of information. I heard that there is a topic earthworm, but you can go to tomato plants, to the empowerment of women. So I see it's a huge thing you're working on, the earthworm cooperation. Thank you so much for letting us know the details of the method you are using towards, you call it a future farming. Dr. Philip was talking about another model for sustainable ways of farming, because there is no doubt that this is needed. So we have learned several things on these so tiny animals, which are quite powerful, I think, even though one key message is also the humility. I think this is something we can learn from them. And I would like, having a look at the clock, to open the floor for the questions. Other questions? If there are no questions, I have one, but I think I will hand over to, who will start, Samuel or Johannes, with the questions. Thank you very much. I saw in the chat there were quite several questions, so please.
Yes, I have a question here from our German audience, actually, and I just want to give the word to Judith Filling.
Yeah, good afternoon. And I want to point to what Dr. Zimmermann has said about that, insects are advantageous to be food to humans and fodder for livestock. And I'm now pointing to the great swarms of locusts which occurred in East Africa and also in Uganda since 2020. And I do have the question for Dr. Zimmermann and also for Mr. Odurno. Are there already methods to catch also wild animals in great abundance, to use them as well? And is it already a common practice in Uganda to use this locust?
So should I start and answer that? Yes, that is a question that is definitely arising, and you're absolutely right about this. That the idea should be, if there is so many huge amounts of insects in these swarms, why can they not be used as a potential source? I cannot really tell you the actual point of the analysis today, but what you have to think of is that these are really fast-moving, huge thrives, amounts of insects, and we're talking about millions here, and they're really moving fast, and it's not really predictable where they will appear next. So it is, sure, you would say you would put out a big net and just collect them from the sky, but that is not as easy as we see it, or that could be an option. But I can let me tell you that they are people are working on this. there is projects in analyzing this option. Where they are at this point as a result of that, I cannot tell you right now, but I definitely will check this again and see what is the prospect here in 2020. But I absolutely agree with you. We see these flying protein bars in huge amounts, and why can we not catch them? But it is already addressed, this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Philip. Emmanuel, will you also answer? This question was also to you, right, Judith?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Sonia. And I've forgotten the name of the person who was asked the question. Thank you. In Uganda, we are still at the infant stage of earthworm genetic breeding and multiplication. It's not yet a large practice, but it's now being practiced in smaller amount within some areas of Kampala, which is the capital city of Kampala. And also in northern region, we are doing it as a cooperative. The reason is that in earthworm farming, you can only get substantive quantity when you engage a large number of people. That's why we have to form a cooperative where you have a large amount of farmers who are interested, and you enable them, you teach them on the earthworm breeding process and how they can handle it. So, so far we have around 30 early adapters, being a new project. People always are skeptical when it comes to science here in Uganda. There are few people who want to put their resources on something where the research is still going. So far we have some few early adapters, but we are doing wonders. We are keeping around 500 poultry that particularly we are feeding using our feed, and it has given us good impact in the local market. So we are still relying on our members for marketing so that we can easily exhaust all the options within the vermiculture. I think that is partially what I can answer, but the potential is big, but yet to be tapped. And also our government is not yet putting much onto scientific researches, mostly bioscience. I think that is our weak point. There's less money on research, so mostly you use your local resources that are collected by the farmers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judith, is your question answered?
I think it was about earthworm farming and worming compost, but I was asking about the locust. So yeah, I was asking, is locust catching a practice in Uganda already? So it was not really answered.
Maybe to supplement on that, there is a type of insect that which is edible and so sweet. It's called grasshopper, and it's maybe in Uganda it's the only kind of insect, wild insect, that we have a method of catching it. Usually locally, farm or people, not farmers but anyone who is ready to catch these insects has to prepare drums, empty drums, and iron sheets with smoke and a bright light. And these insects usually come in the night. So they are seasonal, usually in November and at the beginning of the year. So these are the insects that we usually have a method of catching them. But for the locusts, like Doctor said, they are not easy. They are in big swarms and you can't easily tap them. So locally we have that method for the grasshoppers. And when you check for how Ugandans catch grasshoppers, I think you can find more other details on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this addition, Samuel. So the next question, please.
Yes, I have another question here from Elisa S. Do you want to pose the question yourself directly, please?
Yes, my question is according to Mr. Zimmermann, maybe. And I was asking myself, or if you have any idea about, or what do you think about animal welfare in insect farming in the future, if it's going to be a topic in insect farming as well?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for that question. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a topic that needs to be addressed as well, and that is already being considered in terms of this. It is not an easy to answer question, as you can imagine, and there's more research on this to be done. It is certainly a question of how you address animal welfare and how you define it. And with every organism that you farm, this type of question arises. I cannot give you the promising answer that we will know all the details about how to answer these questions in the future. As the development of farming insects on a mass level still is in its development, in its baby shoes to some part. So, but be sure as well that this issue is addressed, and that it always depends on which what you say, what parameters you see in terms of animal welfare in living organisms. And there's definitely already research done on these terms to make sure that this is a good way to farm living organisms.
Elisa, is your question answered, or do you want to ask the same question to Mr. Manuel? Because for us swarms, we could continue and having this question too.
Yes, I would also like to ask Mr. Emmanuel as well, or hear his opinion.
Yeah, Mr. Emmanuel, is the question clear? Did you hear the question?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lisa. I think when it comes to integrated agriculture, each animal husbandry, and I think the way God has made it, they don't live in isolation. When we talk of integrated farming, the story on animal welfare will automatically fit into insects in the near future. As I told you, we have already been doing it. Apart from poultry feeds, we also formulate pig's feed, because they mostly rely on the same nutrient profile, apart from others like adding pig boosters. So you will see now insects like earthworm are now being used to feed pigs. So you now see we are part of integrated farming, how each of them support each other, and the pigs will give a dung that you will either use it for feeding worms. So you will see the excreta from the animals are being used for feeding worms, and worms are giving them food as an alternative protein source. So I think that it integrates itself. Thank you. I think that is my position, how I can answer.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Elisa, are you fine with this?
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Then we jump to the next question.
Yes, I have another one. Stuart, would you pose a question? Because I don't know who you want to address directly. Stuart at TGK, please.
Please switch on your microphone so we can hear you.
Okay, then I would just ask the question. I think it was directed to
Hello?
Simon. Ah, there you go. Okay.
Yes, I directed the question to Dr. who made the first presentation about the earthworms.
Just ask the question right away. You have the word.
Okay, so I would like to inquire, for example, in Uganda, there is some stereotype and negative attitude with some people about some insects. Give an example of some religion, for example, the Seventh-day Adventists, they don't eat the white ants, just an example. So is there such kind of stereotype in the EU? And if in any case, if there were any, how did he overcome such kind of stuff? Thank you.
Dr. Zimmerman, did you get the question?
Oh, was it directed to me?
Yeah, it was.
Yes, I got parts of the idea. I got parts of the questions, and that there's people that are not really in the like of consuming insects, seeing insects as part of their food chain. We call it, there's a parameter for that, and that's called the yuck factor. That means that people are not really happy about having insects in their food, and people not liking that. And yes, it is addressed, and that you can only really address that in terms of raising awareness and really talking to people about the potential and the ways that they should actually build up trust toward insects as a good food source. So it takes time, absolutely, and you absolutely need to go positive into that direction, and it takes campaigns really to address this issue, because you cannot easily say to people, oh, it's good, you absolutely can eat it. You need to start with the young generations, and that is something that Enthusiast also wants to approach, is that you need to educate in an early stage, where before parents are able to tell kids that insects are yucky. You know, it's not, try to point out to your kid insects and tell them about the use of insects and the advantage of insects as early as you can, to generate a positive image about them, because most of the times it's the older generations that arise these kind of empathies or negative feelings towards something. It is the older generation that implants that into the young people. So do it the other way around and tell them, hey, it's good, it's great, it is a good source and pillar for us, and brings us life. You know, that is, I think that is a way that you should go in this direction.
Thank you. I mean, this is really the message to the young farmer generation. Is this question answered satisfyingly?
Yes, please. That is well answered.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, for the question. Thank you. Johanna, Samuel, how is the situation? Do you need another question? I have one still.
I still have some questions, but Sam, do you want to?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. This is Eve. The person that is Emma, who was talking about worms. I wanted to know, because as far as feeds to poultry, we look at the protein content. So I wanted to know what is the protein content in insects and worms, because at the end of the day, before we feed, we want to know the value of the feed. Thank you.
Should I go in there and try to start answer some of that? Yes, thank you, Eve, for your question, which is a very good question as well. As I mentioned, the protein content of great parts of insect species is comparable with the protein content, for example, for fish. But what I also mentioned, so we're talking about a protein content in between 30 to 60%, and that you see that is quite a span, and that depends on what I mentioned. You cannot talk about saying insects have this amount of protein altogether and generally. We are talking about, and that's what I was mentioning is we're talking about differences between certain species, and when you have an idea of what kind of species you would like to feed to your poultry, you would have to have an analysis or read in the research that's done on this species about the certain content of protein that's in there. And that's what I also mentioned. You cannot say that if you add early pupa stages to your poultry, that they get the same amount of protein out of it when you get feed adult or older stages of these insects into it. Let's try to say in general, it is a very valuable protein source, but it definitely depends on the species that you're feeding and the stage of life that the species is in when you are feeding it. I cannot give you the answer, it is 85%, you know, so please understand that I'm trying, you can be sure that this is a very good protein source, but it depends on the species that we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think while looking at the time, I would just read the next question, not myself. There's one again from Stephen to Dr. Philip. Talking of organic farming and integrating insects therein, which other beneficial insects that can be introduced in manageable numbers into farming systems as a biological control measure besides earthworms in captions, considering the tropical conditions in Uganda?
Thank you for addressing this question to me as being a German and not having a real idea about the, let's say, the species varieties of insects in Uganda. Oh, that's a toughie. Let's say it that way. With the black soldier fly originating from these regions of subtropical ranges, it is absolutely a good and studied species that does this kind of job. There is people that call the black soldier fly the jewel of the insect industry, as it is really adaptable to different conditions, but it is certainly more easily farmed in an area like Uganda, as you have the climate, the temperatures and the humidities and everything that you need for that. What other species there would be to be considered of, I have to leave it blank. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to move around it, but you can certainly farm the yellow mealworm, but the yellow mealworm, for example, is has a different demand to the substrate that you need to put in, and that is why the black soldier fly is so in the focus of this research, because it is so undemanding. The larvae are so undemanding, etc. Crickets also are farmed and but I do not see the real potential as a central element of circular economic models. So sorry, I have to try and ask you or give you the idea that you might need to talk to somebody who really has a more regional perspective to that.
Probably this is Emmanuel Oder. Do you have to add anything on that? I mean, when I read the question, I read here biological control, so the crickets are probably not the best solution. Do you want to add something?
Question again?
Thank you, Sonja. Yeah, thank you. I think on the aspect that has been helped, or about the other beneficial insects that can easily be introduced to manage to integrate into farming. I think in Uganda, I've seen some few people who have tried the issues of those black flies to produce maggot. Although basically they're on the trial process is not yet fully established, but what we know within Africa, it is mostly pronounced in South Africa, where maggot is reared at large scale using black flies to multiply the maggot. And in a certain farm where I came to know, Goody Leisure Farm, where it had been tried in Nigeria, they were using mostly when you are rearing poultry, always there is a mortality rate, mostly in our poultry, broilers or broilers. So the dead chicken are not thrown. They are used to attract some of the local flies that can produce maggot. But it has not yet been done at such a commercial level, but some trials have been made. I think that's what I can add.
Thank you very much for this addition. Stephen, is your question answered?
Sonia. Hello.
Yes, hello, I can hear you.
Yes, my question, my area of interest was integrating the insect value chain into crop to manage the pests and diseases that occur in crop. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. May I? Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Maybe I get the question wrong in the beginning. I know that maybe. Are you talking about pest control? Are you talking about control?
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm talking about pest control.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Stephen. Then I got a wrong impression here. Yes, we are. You are talking about using insects to fight insects. Is that correct?
Very correct.
Okay, then I give you parts of the same answer that I just gave you earlier, is because this is also a very regional to be addressed question in terms of which pest insect we are talking about and what insect species are, let's say, natural consumers of these insect species. And then again, due to the huge world of entomology and the different species that there are with regional differences, I would not be able, I am not an entomologist, sorry, that's a difficult word, which would be able to give you this precise answer. This is an answer or a question that you definitely need to direct to people with a really specification in entomology, because there, to every pest insect, let's say it that way, there usually are about 10 to 15 species that consume it. So, but which ones we're talking about here and which ones would be the best ones to address your issue in your region, please ask a regional expert on this.
Thank you very much. 1 to 10, that sounds like quite huge potential. Thank you. Johannes, how's the situation? Are there further questions?
Yes, there's another question from Francis Odongo. Do you want to pose it now so I don't misspell the question and it get through clearly? Francis, you had a question for Emmanuel?
It seems he has a problem with the connection.
Yeah, okay.
Are you there, Francis?
Right. Emmanuel, how are you capable of producing large amounts of dry earthworms to mix with feeds to mix with feeds?
Yes, thank you. What we do, all these things are biological process. Since earthworm falls under the field of bioscience, in earthworm, or according to several researches done and what we have experienced it within our few years in doing advancing several researches on earthworm. Each earthworm produces around 17 17 cocoon, and within each cocoon you will find it will give you around 1 to 7 baby worms after hatching. So now with our earthworm, we can easily, with around 100 earthworm units, within 2 months, we can easily harvest around 45 kilograms of earthworm. That is depending on the atmospheric condition you're keeping your worms. This is a biological process. It is not a mechanical process where everything goes straight. It depends how well you have adopted your system, because earthworms survive under temperate climate of around 27 degrees centigrade. When it is too cold, in a very cold environment, they will not hatch very quickly. They can even stay for a whole year without hatching. The cocoon will refuse to hatch. So it more or less depends on the atmospheric condition and how you are feeding your worms. So they will give you results according to the conditions you have put them to. But so far, that is the capability of earthworm. We can only do it if large number of people are involved. I think I have to make that point very clear. With individuals, it's very difficult to harvest earthworm to a very large quantity. So it needs several hands to do that. That's why we are trying to encourage our cooperative members to put more earthworm system, so that in a nearby 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to even harvest 1 ton within a week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think one question that was posed has been answered right now, a little bit, but yeah, Chemtai has one last question. I think then we have to wrap up.
Okay, this is Chemtai from Captura. My question goes to Emmanuel. Like I actually that came to my farm that does larva on the black soldier fly. So again, what I'm hearing, the guy told me, the Nigerians told me that whenever that their larva stays only for 2 weeks, it's ready for consuming by the pigs, and then you don't even mix it with any concentrate. And now I'm wondering, like I'm now confused. So I really wanted to know, and he told me in 10 grams of
We cannot hear you.
Of the black soldier, maybe because that's another hearing of 45 kilos in 2 months. So I really wanted to know about that.
Sorry, I think you have to repeat the question shortly because the connection was off.
I wanted to know. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you very well. Just repeat the question, please. So please switch on your microphone and repeat just the question.
Yes. Hello. I wanted to know. Hello.
I think the connection is too bad. Would you please be kind and write down the question? Thank you so much. Is there another question, Johannes? We can answer or
no questions really, rather comments. I don't know who they're addressed to, but I'll just throw them in. In Uganda, we're trying insects as alternative proteins for poultry. However, the challenge is that needed dry matter content cannot be attained in a short time. So I think Francis wants to say that it takes too long get enough dry matter. What's your comment for that, Emmanuel, and then Dr. Zimmermann? Emmanuel, did you hear that?
Is the question clear to the speakers?
Okay. Francis Odongo was saying that the challenge in using insects as alternatives, alternative proteins for poultry, the challenge there is that the needed dry matter cannot be attained in a short time. So I think Francis wants to say that it takes too long.
So we just heard that the velocity is quite a good.
May I say something to this?
What about this, Philip?
Yes, I said with my microphone off, be patient, but that's not really nice of that, because it does not answer the question. Well, it is a question of gaining enough dry matter to feed your poultry, and that is a question that arises with everybody that tries or thinks about introducing this option into his system. Is, well, you know, we're talking about short circle mini livestock if we're talking about and for example the larvae of the black soldier fly, and it has a time span of about 21 to 25 days that you would have your larvae from hatching to larvae of a certain age and growth that you would be able to use it as dry matter. So that is not that long of a circle if you think about other raising other ingredients of your substrate, but you need a certain amount of black soldier flies in different stages of their life cycle, so that you always have a considerate and stable source that you could use as food. So what you actually need is a system that has all types, all life stages of the fly at all times. So you need an adult generation that mates and produces eggs. You need the eggs that you starting them to grow, and you need at all times you need a certain. That's why it's also a circle of life, as biologists call it. At all times, so that you always have an end product that you can feed to your animals. So I cannot give you an answer how many flies you need in the point right now to start from and say in a month you have that amount of food. You always have to have a running situation with of the insect organism, so you can continuously be able to produce dry matter to feed your animals. And then again, it depends on the amount of animals you have and the space you have, so that you're able to raise and run the system continuously. So it's also, again, sorry to say, not an easy to answer question, but I think it is part of an answer to this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Philip. Yeah, I think we realize that the topic, the insects themselves, is quite complex, because you pointed out it's about the different species, and then again within the species about the different status. So, and we have this complex system meeting another complex system, which is the breeding of chicken or of other animals. So
yes, and that's what I was trying to point out at my presentation. And maybe next time we have a course only on the black soldier fly or only on the yellow mealworm, because there will be a lot of questions only considering this kind of species coming up. But like I said, you cannot talk about insects in general. That is not answerable in our time span that we have here.
Thank you very much for this offer. I will take you by the word, and we just will point out or figure out on which date we will have this follow-up webinar, because this is also in the, like, if we have a look at the set of webinars, a big chance we have to really go into detail when it's about certain topics which are interesting to the participants. So again, a big thank you to you participants for asking your questions. Please don't hesitate. I think in the future, if we just get used to the system, we will become even better in understanding the questions, and you probably in asking your questions. I have a question. I will use the chance, Johannes, as you are muted and I'm talking to Emmanuel, because Dr. Philip said the emissions from the insects make just a fragment of the greenhouse gases. What about the earthworms? Because you, as an expert not only in earthworms, also on biogas, do you know anything about this? Is there research on this question, on the amount of gases these little worms emit?
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. Yes, it's unfortunate. I am on a panel with a top expert, and we can only do better by learning from him. So, case about the gas emission with earthworm system. That's why at the beginning, at the preempt of my speech, I made mention that earthworm as an environmental control assessment within the vermiculture. So the point is, mostly in Africa, mostly in particular Uganda, this solid waste, the rotten tomatoes, are dumped within a landfill. That when they decompose airless, it will emit methane into the atmosphere. That will affect the weather pattern. So those are the environmental impact of this waste. But now what earthworm does is, one, if we remove this solid waste from the market center and we integrate it within the earthworm system, mostly we do partial decomposition in a covered pit to decompose it. So it does not decompose within the airspace. We always cover it for some 10 days, 10 to 15 days. Then within those days, when integrated in the system, it will not emit much gas. But although in that point, a little bit more research has to be done. But on the other aspect, earthworms control the emission of this gas, mostly methane, into the atmosphere. Then on my experience as a biogas expert, we did a research with National Water and Sewerage Corporation in Uganda on how we can convert this sewage sludge to produce gas for biogas generator and also in gas cylinders. So it always resolves within the common elements that how can this large amount of methane gas be converted and stored for useful purpose. That is the only control measure that comes in with this system, how you can convert them in a proper way. So ours on earthworm is proper ecological waste management. So I think it controls partial, but to what extent, still further research has to be done. Thank you.
I thank you very much. Again, lots of topics for our upcoming webinars. And I will take this if there is not another burning question. I see there were some in the chat to give you the opportunity to contact Dr. Philip or Emmanuel directly. And again, thank you very much. I am looking at the clock and see that we really have to wrap up. What I would like to say as outlook is that we have the next closed webinar on 15th of October. This will be already next week and means the participants of the IYFEP program. And the next open webinar will be on 26th of November of this year. Further information will come from Johannes and Samuel as usual. Johannes, do you want to add anything?
No, like just for next week's webinar, it will be a session with our trainer, including Sonia and our other trainers. Some of you saw already some videos of them, but yeah, this is another type of webinar we are offering, and it's gonna start next week.
Exactly. So a big thank you to both of you, Mr. Emanuel Oder, Mr. Dr. Philip. It was so interesting. And I'm very glad that we have really like a big box of treasures of topics with which we can continue. For sure, if there is anything you really would like to have on the table or the desk, please just let us know. Samuel is there. He will digest as the insects and the earthworms all this information, and we will come together again. I thank you so much for participating and have a nice week until next week when we will see us again.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye,
Same to you.
bye. Thank you, Philip. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Odo and Dr. Philip.
Thank you.
Now I'm also saying it.
That's good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And
Right,
also, thanks to UNIFA for the support, and of course all the participants. And yeah, I hope our webinar series continues successful like this.
Take care. Stay
All right.
All right. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Have a good day. Enjoy your week. Bye.
Thanks.
Good. Wir noch irgendwas, Johannes?
Nö, ich würde jetzt, glaube ich.
Reicht.
Ja.
Gut.
Alles gut. Vielen Dank, Sonja.
Tschüss.